Mid. Mid. Mid.
Clive Rosfield.
Zed.
Gamer Braves.
What's up guys, it's One from Game Braves. Final Fantasy XVI is out, and that means people have finally beaten the game. There is one issue that everyone can't seem to agree over, which is the nature of the game's ending. And that's what I want to talk about here today. We didn't want to post this as soon as the game came out because we wanted to give even the most normal of people a chance to actually go and beat Final Fantasy XVI, because there are some issues with its ending. A lot of people can't seem to agree what the ending specifically means, and I figured that we should talk about that today. This is naturally going to be a very spoiler-heavy video, so this is your last chance to back out before we talk about the ending of Final Fantasy XVI. Are you still here? Does Clive live at the end of Final Fantasy XVI? This topic spans many Facebook and Reddit threads, with many people just not being able to agree whether or not Clive survives the ending. For those of you who might need a refresher, the ending for Final Fantasy XVI is as follows. Joshua is killed by Ultima. Clive kills Ultima and absorbs his power, uses that power to destroy the Mother Crystal, and then washes up on a beach where he is slowly turning to stone, because his body that was supposed to be incredibly resistant to the petrification curse turned out to not be so much when you were dealing with the kind of power that Ultima had. I see many arguments say that this is actually proof that Clive survives because he washed up on the beach and only his hand was turning to stone. Therefore, he totally just builds a boat and sails home. And all the scenes of all the other characters crying when they realized that he probably died was actually for nothing. But I disagree with this take. A lot of the Clive lives truthers tend to assume that something is wrong, like there's a cutscene that is actively lying to you. You see this a lot in the, oh no, the wishing star goes out. That's actually to symbolize that Jill's wish came true and Clive is coming home, or the dawn always comes, so that means that Clive was always going to find his way back to Jill. If you look at it in a completely just tonal way, it is the perfect setup for him to die. The ending is very much setting up the story that at the end, all magic needs to go away.
Earlier had the flames of an icon.
Magic belongs in fairy tales, and fairy tales don't boil kettles.
That's why Clive destroys Origin. That's why every dominant ends up dead at the end. It's the exception of Jill, who gives up most of her power to Clive. While I do agree the fact that Jill is alive and probably still capable of doing magic is a little bit of an oversight, you see this in a lot of anime that tend to be critiquing some sort of exploitative system, which is, at the end of the day, the main character realizes that they are part of that system and need to go as well. It's not unlike the ending of Terminator 2, where Arnie lowers himself into the smelting pot because he's a piece of Skynet tech as well. That being said, there's also a lot of theories because of the after credits scene. For those who haven't seen the after credits scene, the after credits takes place many years into the future, where the adventures of Clive, Joshua, Torgal, and I guess Jill were put into a book titled Final Fantasy, written by Joshua Rosfield. I've seen some theories say that Clive lives and then goes on to write the book. However, if you talk to Harpocrates before going on the final quest, he does mention that Joshua himself is pretty good at writing. This is as good an implication as any that the book that you see at the end there is probably already written before they leave for the final quest. That being said, I do agree that there is a precedent for Clive probably just going on in his brother's name. The other question a lot of people have with the ending is what he's doing with Joshua. Some people think that he's using Ultima's power to revive Joshua at the end there. Personally, I think this is more just a case of brotherly love. You see it in the whole montage. Clive very much loves his younger brother, and the idea of seeing him all bloody and mangled from his fight to the death with an alien, you probably want to clean him up a bit, you know, have him look like his best. I honestly don't think that Joshua is going to come back in any kind of capacity, just because it takes away from the entire scene that you see there. You don't bust out the young Clive meets baby Joshua montage if you intended any of them to come back. The biggest tentpole for the Clive lives side I've seen is the idea that, well, Clive has to live because they're gonna have DLC, and I would like to point you to a movie that I like to call Cowboy Bebop Knocking on Heaven's Door. Spoilers for Cowboy Bebop if you haven't seen it yet. Spike eats it at the end of Cowboy Bebop. It is a very thematic death. It's a story about how Spike chose to stick to his old life, and that's what kills him. He could have walked away, but he chose not to. A movie was released after the ending for Cowboy Bebop called Knocking on Heaven's Door. How do you have a movie like that when your main character's already dead? Just slip it in between a few episodes. It takes place literally a few episodes before the finale of Cowboy Bebop, letting all the characters have one last huzzah together before they all split up for the anime's ending. And I very much think that's what we're gonna get out of Final Fantasy XVI's DLC. It's gonna be just some in-between adventure, which honestly makes me pretty happy because that's the best kind of DLC. You see it a lot in the Souls games DLC as well, where it doesn't really do anything to the game's ending. It's just a kind of thing that you can do on the side. Kind of like traveling to a mountain to beat up the Nameless King, or, to be more accurate with the DLC, going all the way to the end of the world just so that the painter girl can get the dark soul of man. It doesn't change the ending anyway because you're still fighting an old skelly man in a field full of flowers. At the end of the day though, I think Clive dying is the most thematic way that Final Fantasy XVI could have ended. Clive's story is not a particularly happy one. The people he loved tend to die for the ideas that they believe in. Sid dies so that they can start making the world that they want, where everyone is free, while Dion and Joshua basically die because they believe in Clive. They're willing to give up their lives so that Clive can finish the mission that he started.
Thank you, Clive, for being my brother.
Towards the end of the game, Clive gets all the power in the world and uses it to create the world he wanted. One no longer ruled by the crystals, and more importantly, one without Ultima's influence. As sad as it is, I think it's fitting that he dies there, because for as long as Clive lives, he would have had that power, and I think him having that power at the ending would completely contradict the overall message of Final Fantasy XVI. The characters wanted this world with no magic, and then having one guy be not only magical, but the most magical any character has been would be pretty crazy. Still, I understand. A lot of people like the characters. I myself liked it. May have been reduced to a crying mess at the end of the game. But I do think that the story is for the better if we just assume that Clive dies there on that beach, disintegrating just like every other dead bearer, meaning that his body will probably never be found. What are your thoughts on the ending of Final Fantasy XVI? Let us know in the comments below. It's been Watermelon from Game Braves, and take care, guys. Thank you so much for watching our videos. Don't forget to give us a subscribe if you'd like to see more, and like so we know what kind of content you want to see. Got suggestions for new content? Let us know in the comments below too. Thank you so much again for watching. Take care, dudes.